Good evening and welcome to Sunday Night 7 Facebook Live. Hope you've all had a good day or a good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Today I would like to talk about, well, before I do that, just to remind you who I am, my name is Paul and I help people with an alcohol problem to get sober, stay sober and take back control of their lives. And I use hypnosis and a variety of other tools to do that. If you need help with that, what I do is I offer a strategy call, and all you've got to do is just type yes in the comments below and then I can get in touch with you after the show. Tonight, what I would like to discuss and have a chat with you is what's your why? And two sides of that story. Why do you or why did you drink? And then the second one is why did you stop or why are you going to stop? So I've got a whole list of different reasons which I've made up today, but I really would like to hear your stories, why you stopped, why you drank, if there was any sort of specific kind of reason why you did drink. So have a think about that and let me know your whys. One of the reasons that I drank was peer pressure. Yeah, it was, especially when I was much younger, everybody did it. And I was in the army and we'd go out on a night after we'd finished duty. We'd go out and we'd get absolutely off our heads, off our trolleys, you know, shit face, that whole kind of thing. Because it's what everybody did. And if you didn't drink, you were seen as a kind of a bit of a freak and a non-member of the team because you didn't join, you didn't participate. Because that's what you did. You'd go out and you'd drink and you'd go chasing girls and get into trouble with other regiments or other, you know, local civilians, that kind of thing. And it was the norm. And it was almost, how can I put it? It was like an accepted kind of behaviour unless you got into serious trouble. I mean, that's why the MPs, military police, were always on the rounds doing the lookout. In the UK, Catterick in the north of England is a big army kind of area. So there's all kinds of stories coming from that kind of place. Another reason I drank was I guess it was because it was available. It was everywhere. You know, you'd go into pubs, clubs, shops, friends' houses, all kinds of different places to do different things, and booze would just be everywhere. So it's like you were just surrounded by this thing. And another reason, I guess, was because of society. It was expected of you. Even when I was out in the army, you know, you'd go and meet somebody, and you didn't generally go and meet somebody. When you with guys, you didn't go and meet another guy for a coffee. You'd meet them for a beer, which then turned into several beers, and then turned into getting off your head, you know, and lots and lots of different kind of issues. And the problem that I found with it is that I don't have, also when I was drinking, I never had a really massive tolerance for booze. Yeah, I would wake up in the morning and I would just feel so awful. And one of my problems was I used to be a binge drinker. You know, when I was married and the kids were very young, we used to go to France a lot. And we'd go to France and I'd spend 2 or 3 days driving, you know, staying overnight, that kind of thing. And the first night we got to where we were staying, we'd, you know, get the kids sorted out, get the caravan or the tent sorted out, feed everybody and all that kind of thing. And then I would go into the bar on site and then thinking I was, you know, really cool because I can speak really good French, I would sit there with the locals and sort of start drinking and then kind of just carry on drinking, not till I was staggeringly drunk, but till, you know, I'd had too much. And I would go home, or back to the caravan, going to bed, and then the next day I would be sick as a dog because I was drinking the local hooch, something called eau de vie de pois, which l'eau de vie is water of life, so it's like the local brewed kind of thing, or Calvados, which is made from apples. Very strong stuff. So I used to like to think I could handle it, but I couldn't. So I would lose almost an entire day of my holiday, you know, throwing up and trying to recover. And So yeah, I was trying. I guess the reason there was I was trying to sort of like join in with the locals, be part of the crowd, although I'd only be there for a while. And the problem was they'd grown up with this stuff, so they'd had years and years and years of experience. So for them, they'd built up the tolerance, whereas I hadn't. So I really, really suffered. Of course, my wife at the time wasn't very happy because she had to look after the kids for the day and the noise, and I was making, well, I won't bother with it, but wasn't very pleasant. Another reason that I hear people talking about, which actually struck me as quite unusual, was an act of rebellion. Now, I kind of get it if you're a kid and your parents say, don't you dare drink, young man, young woman, and that kind of thing. So you go out behind their back and you start slugging away because you're rebelling against your parents. But as a grown-up, do we ever want to rebel by drinking ourselves into a hole? I don't really know. For fun, well, the fun of drinking wore off pretty quickly, I think. It wore off pretty quickly. I mean, in the end, I guess it became a habit, which is one of the reasons why I stopped. Now, one thing I've been reading about today, I've been looking at various sort of sites and things, is some people drank for a spiritual experience. I don't mean spirits as in, shots, but, the world out there. And this is something really, really new to me. I've never, ever in my entire life when I was drinking had a spiritual experience or met anybody that's had a spiritual experience. Personally, most of my experiences of that nature have been when I've been stone cold sober, and they've been absolutely incredible. I'll give you one example. A long time ago, I was a ski bum, and I worked in this place called Val d'Isère in the French Alps. And I remember very distinctly getting up one morning, because I had a job up, I had two jobs, and I had one job up in the top of the mountain in a restaurant, doing sort of manual labour kind of stuff. And I got up really, really early on this particular morning and got the service lift, which carrying all the goods and stuff up to the restaurants on the mountain. Got to the top and then skied across to the base of this mountain and then sort of climbed up for, 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that, until I was on this ledge. And I sat down, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. I sat down, and it was still just about dawn, so we're talking around about 7:30 in the morning. Nobody else around, because this is right off the beaten track. And where I was quite high. There was a peak behind me, and then everything else was lower than us, me and the peak. So there was like a gorgeous pink sky. The sun was just coming up. The pinkness was reflecting off the clouds, and there was just tiny little points of mountains poking up through the clouds. So I actually felt like I was on top of the world, literally, yeah. And there was nobody else around, and there was just me. So I guess I felt like the Greek gods used to feel in all the myths and legends, sitting on top of Mount Olympus, being on top of the world. And to me, that was, I won't say it was like a spiritual experience of feeling one with the universe, but it was such a really, really special experience to me. And I was stone cold sober. And I've never had another experience like it, never even been close to it when I used to drink. So I would really love to know what your reasons were for drinking, or for not drinking, or for starting or stopping. Over to you. It's only the drinks, I've been talking too much. This is water, by the way. Okay, you've all gone shy, not a problem. I shall continue talking. So, what have I talked about? Let's see. Yeah, there's some other reasons which I haven't mentioned yet. I'm in a lot of groups on Facebook for all sorts of different things, like anxiety, stress, people with, trying to get sober, staying sober, drug-related problems, all that kind of thing. And one of the big ones is people drink to relieve stress and anxiety and depression. And this really worries me, because if you've just started drinking, then yeah, there is definitely a very, very, very sort of soft effect to dampen down things like depression, anxiety, and to boost you up a little bit. But once you've been drinking for a while, that just disappears completely. And worse still is that, you know, you start to build up a tolerance to alcohol, like I mentioned earlier on. And you have to drink more and more and more to get the same effect as, you know, sort of dampening down your anxiety, dampening down your depression. But all it does, it creates more problems, because when you wake up in the morning... Oh, hi Brandy, nice to see you. I was going to interrupt what I was saying there. Me quitting drink was a blessing in disguise. I'm on Wellbutton for depression, anxiety. Drinking Wellbutton can cause seizures. Almost a month without alcohol, and I feel better. Oh, brilliant, absolutely, yeah. It can take a while from once you stop drinking, yeah, moving forward, to get all the good beneficial effects of stopping drinking. But it is so worth it. It might be a bumpy road from day one to when you're fully, you know, completely rid of alcohol out of your life, but it is just so worth it. The benefits are just outweigh completely any of the small advantages you get from drinking, completely, totally and utterly. Where was I? Yeah, so depression, anxiety, just, it doesn't work. You think it does, but then in the morning when you wake up, the problems that were making you feel anxious, the worries that cause depression, whatever caused your stress, if it's work-related stress, you're still got to get up to go to work, but the problem is you feel like crap because you've got a hangover and your throat is dry, your skin's all, you feel crap, and you've still got to go to work. You've still got to go and face the boss who's a pain in the neck, or your work colleagues that you don't like working with, but you've got to go to work with the hangover. And then the worst thing that can happen, which I've heard about people doing, is they have to have a drink to get them to get up and get started through the day. And that is creating, again, this vicious cycle that we've talked about. It is not a good place to be. Another reason why people drink, and they talk about it a lot, is the relaxation effects. You know, you've had a long day at work and you come home, kick off your shoes, take your coat off, hang your keys up, and you pick up a glass of wine and you relax in front of the telly. Again, that has some truth to it if you've only been drinking for a while and drinking very, very small amounts. But once again, the body builds up a tolerance and you don't experience that sense of relaxation. And in fact, what happens is it becomes an automatic reflex. We can become very quickly robots to a certain extent. Imagine when you're driving. If you're driving from home to work and then work to home, Monday to Friday, every day for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you switch into autopilot unless there's a potential accident coming your way, and then you switch back into manual mode and deal with it. And it's the same when you get home. You know, think about it. You come home from work, what do? I bet you do exactly the same thing. You come home, you put the keys in the same spot. If you're wearing a coat, you take your coat off, you hang that up. If you've got outdoor shoes, you take those off. If you've got a family, you go into the kitchen and start cooking dinner, you're preparing dinner, bottle of wine, glass of wine while you're cooking, boom, 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 sort the kids out, get the kids off to bed, sit down in front of the telly, more wine, and you don't realise you're doing it after a while. It becomes an automated routine. And we go from the one glass to the 2 glasses to the half a bottle to a full bottle, and then you go on to 2 bottles and sometimes even more. And you don't realise you're doing it. This is the dangerous thing. You don't know you're doing it. I mean, obviously you know that you're pouring another glass, but your brain doesn't register, shit, I've just had 2 bottles of wine tonight, until something goes wrong. Until, you know, did you know that alcohol can stay in your body for up to 10 days after you had a drinking session? 10 days. So that means that you could be 3 days down the line after drinking a couple of bottles of wine, and you get pulled over for having a brake light missing or a minor thing, yeah, and they give you a breathalyzer and you can be over the limit. Where I used to work has a very tight security and it had a 0 alcohol policy, and to protect that, they did random drug and alcohol tests. So before you actually came into the gate, you could just be randomly said, excuse me, over there, and you would have to literally go over and be breathalyzed and do a saliva thing for drug testing. And if you were found out, it was an instant dismissal. And conversely, if you refused to have your breathalyzer done, that was also, you ended up in front of your boss and had to justify why you'd refused. And the problem that some people, especially in the early days, getting used to this sort of protocol, people would go, drinking in the middle 2 days of their sort of days off, thinking that they were clear, but 1 or 2 people actually got caught out during these random tests because they maybe not drunk the day before, but they'd been drinking enough on the Saturday and the Sunday, back at work on the Tuesday, that they'd been drinking enough on the Saturday and Sunday to be still over the limit, and get caught out. And then people figured that out, and so actually deliberately had to cut down what they were drinking. But one of the things that I found really interesting is that over time, we forget the reasons why that we start drinking to a higher level. I mean, all the things I've talked about, absolutely, but there's another reason. I'm fairly well convinced, pretty much 99.9% convinced, that a lot of people drink because of some incident, some event in the past. Maybe their parents were drinkers and they witnessed abuse or were victims of abuse, and the subconscious mind actually kind of encourages you to drink, so you blot out all of those memories. Because the alcohol is like a parasite. It takes over your central nervous system and pretty much controls you, turns you into a zombie. So if you think about it, if you've got some kind of traumatic event hidden in the back of your head here, which rears its ugly head every now and again, you don't want to think about it, if you smother that in booze, and it will put it to one side. The problem is that's not the best way of doing it. There are other ways of doing things to get rid of the impact of those negative memories, You might have been in a car crash, or you might have been fired, or it doesn't really matter. It's some kind of event in the past you've had to deal with, and you don't want to remember it, so we turn to booze to try and forget. It's like, I can't remember the cliche now, but you drink to forget her, or you drink to forget him. And we see it, I broke up with my girlfriend or my boyfriend, or I've just been divorced, and you start giving it all of this. And then 10 years down the line, you're still drinking, although you've forgotten why, actually to forget about the relationship breakup. So one of the things I do when I'm working with people is actually go in to the subconscious and find that reason why, and then change the emphasis. And once you change the emphasis, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or binge eating, or nail biting, or whatever, we can change the emphasis and get rid of it. What else? I think, so we talked about stress. Social norms. Even as adults, a lot of the time we drink to be social. We drink because everybody else is drinking. We find it easier to fall in line with everybody else rather than being a kind of reverse rebel. We talked about being a rebel earlier on. When you're a kid and your parents say don't drink, so you drink to rebel against them. But a lot of us today find it very, very difficult. We don't want to stand out from the crowd. We don't want to be seen to be putting our heads above the parapet kind of thing, So we just fit in with everybody else, even though we know it's not good for us, even though we know we feel crap in the morning, even though we know it inhibits a lot of things, even though we know it puts us, or can put us, into very, very vulnerable positions. I was reading a post today about a young lady who's been 1 year sober, and she's sort of saying goodbye to all these things that was happening. And she said a couple of things. She said goodbye to putting myself in dangerous situations, going into places I shouldn't be going to, talking to people I shouldn't be talking to, and waking up not knowing where I am. I mean, how dangerous is that, So, I would love to know your reasons why you stopped, why you started in the first place. Please drop some comments in the comment section and let me know. And then also, if you've got any questions you want to discuss, let me know, because I can do a whole video on answering a question that you've got or a comment. You know, if you disagree with me, let me know. I don't mind. You've got to be skeptical about these things. We need to be more skeptical in life. Yeah, absolutely. So you could do me a favor, please. Yeah, share this post or share this video, tag somebody in it that you think might need it, or get them to PM me if you think they could do with some help. I've still got plenty of slots this week for my strategy calls. They're free. They take about 45 minutes, and we have a chat to each other to find out if we gel and if I can help you. That is it for tonight. I don't have a subject for tomorrow night yet, so if you've got any questions you'd like me to discuss with you or any points you want to raise, stick them in the comments. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.